Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. We are covering session 2 today for secondary teachers. And thank you for joining us again for the second semester series, Mega Goal 2, Mega Goal 4, and Mega Goal 6. And the topic that we're covering today is spoken and written language context, content components, and learning outcomes integrating skills. I hope you can hear me. I can hear her voice. Great. And we'll just cover a couple of housekeepings before we go on to this. I'm sure you're already familiar with a lot of this. Just before I proceed, can you hear me? If you can hear me, there's a hand icon on the bottom of your screen. If you can just change that for me. Just click that for me, sorry. Excellent. Lots of hands up. Moderators for today, me, Serish, along with my colleagues Minerva, Hamad, Medani, and Nasir. We're in the background to help you with any questions you have, or if you're facing any trouble during the webinar, please do give us a shout and we will be able to help you out with those. Your trainer is Danai, who needs no introduction. She's a content developer and also an author. She has delivered several training workshops for supervisors and teachers in Saudi Arabia and has also co-authored the Saudi editions. Before we begin, a couple of, actually, let me just drop the slides. Not the slides, sorry, the handout for the session today. So sometimes Dana is going to refer to a handout. This is the handout, the link to the handout for the session today. We are covering session 2 for secondary teacher, and tomorrow we have session 3, which is our last session. Before I go on any further, I just want to cover a few things. There is only one session, so there is no afternoon session. We just have one session. So this session is running from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. There is no afternoon session. So I hope that is clear. There are only 3 sessions. So this is session number 2, and tomorrow we have session number 3, same time. Okay, just before, when you log into Zoom, you will have to connect to the audio. So make sure that you're connected to the audio and you are able to hear us. However, if you are facing any connectivity issues with the audio, we recommend you use the call-in function from your phone. And also, we do recommend you close down any high networking apps such as Netflix, YouTube, any gaming platform, because this is likely to affect the bandwidth of your webinar. We can cover Q&A towards the end of the session, so make sure you use the Q&A box so you can write any questions you have for the night, and we will be able to cover that after the session. You will receive a recording for this session as well. So watch out for an email that's going to come with the recording and also the handout link. So you will be able to watch back to this webinar, and we will be providing the certificates once the webinar series is completed. You will only be receiving the certificate for the webinar you attended live, not for the recording, unfortunately. Just want to make sure that's covered. And you're attending this webinar. You might only see your name on the right side. However, there are more than 600 people who have joined this webinar so far. So please don't worry about you're the only one who's attending the webinar. At the same time, you do not need to mark your attendance anywhere. You are being automatically marked for this webinars. So you don't have to log in or mark your attendance anywhere. We know what time you're logging in, we know what time you're logging off. It's all automated, so you don't have to mark your attendance. Very important question coming in about your names. You're already pre-registered for this webinar, which means we already have your full names and your email addresses that were provided to us from your supervisor or your admin. So you do not need to change your name. You do not need to register anywhere. We already have your names. I don't know how it's appearing for you, but we can see your names as you have provided to the ministry or to your supervisor or admin. So please don't worry about how your name is appearing. because your name is appearing just fine for us. We can see your full names. Actually, we can see the same name that you have provided to your admin supervisor. I hope I have covered that. Thank you, Medni, for helping out telling people their names, because I think that's a big concern for everyone. But we can see the name with you provided to us. So please don't worry or change your name. That's it. And I think you are able to interact with your colleagues this time. So you must have noticed you can see your name, your colleagues in the chat box. However, for you to see the other participants or their comments, you have to enable the chat box to all panelists and attendees. So if you just go down and drop down and select the option all panelists and attendees in the chat box, then your comment is going to be viewed to everyone. So all your colleagues will be able to see what comments you're doing. So just make sure that your chat box is enabled to all panelists and attendees. You've got the chat box where you can join the discussion with Danai, share your thoughts, comments, anything you'd like. You also have the Q&A box where you can ask us any questions. Or any technical difficulties. Can you share the handout link again? Sure, I can do that for you. I'm going to share for both yesterday and today in the chat box. So if you've missed the session yesterday, you still have the handout, and the session and the handout for today is also here. So I've answered that one. There's one more question from Ahmed. It says, I hope in the certificate you will write the time like 2 hours or 3 hours. It's important things. Yes, that's correct. This time in the certificate, we will write the number of hours that you've attended. So if you've attended all 3 sessions, you will have 6 hours. If you've attended 2, you will have 4 hours. If you've attended 1, you will have 2 hours. I tried to link yesterday, which was sent to me by email, but it says expired. Very good question, but it's expired because you're using the link for yesterday. If you're using the webinar link for yesterday, that webinar has expired. You will obviously not be able to enter that webinar. Just make sure you have the right date when you enter the webinar. So it should have said February 10th. For tomorrow, it's going to be February 11th. So if you use February 10th for tomorrow, it's not going to work. I just hope that is clear. Just make sure you're using the right link. And we've sent all the 3 links. It's not possible that you got 2 links and not 1 link. If you haven't got all 3 of them, then there is a problem, because that means you are not registered. But if you've got 2 and not 1, that's not possible. You have to check your inbox, because if you have received 2 of them, you would have received all 3 of them. That's fine, Munira. If you've entered your full name, Munira Maksud, that's fine. Don't worry about this. Unless there's anything for me, I can pass over to Danai and not waste any more of the time on housekeepings. The webinar dates will be mentioned. How can I get the recorded session? You will get the recording via email. So we will send you the recording of the webinar via email. So you will get that. Any more questions before I pass on? Just want to make sure. You have to use the same email that you have provided, please. If you share your emails with your colleagues, you're not going to get a certificate. It's as simple as that, because this is a pre-registered webinar. So we have already received your emails. We have already received your full names. So you don't have to change anything. You don't have to do anything. You just have to click the link on the email to join the webinar. Everything is clear. Thank you, Abdullah. Excellent. I suppose that is. If you have any more questions on housekeeping or any other, just make sure you can write. You cannot change your name. Sorry, it's just pre-registered. I'm going to pass over to Danai now. Any questions, please drop them in the Q&A so I can cover these for you behind the scenes. Thank you so much, everyone. Over to you, Danai.
Thank you, Suresh. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining again. Oops. Okay. Good morning. Right, we're going to be looking at written and spoken language a bit more closely today. Let's see how far we can get. And just to remind you, tomorrow we're going to be talking about projects and why and how to organize them. And hopefully we'll have a bit of time to talk about writing as well. Hopefully. Okay, so can you have a look at this, please? What causes comprehension problems that language learners experience and native speakers don't is what? Culture, context. Good, great. Could be language. You're wonderful. Uh, you're really wonderful because the context came up first. Very good. Okay, background. Yes. Okay. So, is there a chance that a native speaker who's listening to somebody will probably miss some of the things that are being said? Is it possible that they might need clarification or repetition or something? Accent, yes. Um, Definitely. Absolutely. Okay, I think it's very important to make learners aware of this because I know it's a very simple thing and we all seem to take it for granted. But learners don't. They assume that, somebody, that native speakers are perfect, they get everything. Just use Arabic, use their own language to remind them that it's perfectly okay to ask for clarification, confirmation, to miss things, to have to ask for explanations, and so on and so forth. Yes, jargon can make things difficult, specialized terms, but specialized subject really, okay? It's not so much the terms alone, it's specialized subjects. If you remember yesterday, we came across a couple of terms like antioxidants and cholesterol, which are sort of more medical, although they're used universally. But this might be a bit of a problem. So when you come across the specialized terms or jargon that you think your learners are going to have problems with, and they're very difficult to understand from context, give them those words in glossary. Okay, tell them before you even start, before you ask them to read or listen to things, so they know what they're dealing with. Okay, they don't practice English language correctly. Well, okay, may I repeat something, please? Let's remind ourselves that accuracy, let's talk about accuracy. Accuracy can be grammatical, lexical, discoursal. We're looking mainly at grammatical, lexical, okay? Uh, People often manage to get their messages across, to communicate, even though there might be accuracy problems, even though they might make mistakes here and there. So this is why it's so important for you to be very clear about the aims of your lesson. You can't turn all your lessons to grammar lessons. You can't turn all your lessons to vocabulary lessons. Okay, this is unfortunately the problem with people who insist on grammar translation. Everything becomes grammar and vocabulary. We need to decide on main aims, okay? So when we're talking about skills and we're talking about written and spoken language, we talk about receptive skills, listening and reading, and productive skills, speaking and writing. Receptive skills, to remind you, something you already know, receptive skills are not passive skills. They're very active cognitively indeed, extremely active. Our minds work while we listen, or they should while we listen or read. And if they don't, if we're not kind of associating things, remembering things, applying things, then we don't understand. So that's the most important thing. So the idea is that we need to be interactive. We need to do active listening and active reading. Okay. So, reading, for example, is not a one-way communication. It's really a two-way communication between the reader and the writer or the narrator, the text. Uh, okay, so there is interaction always. So, this is what we try to cater for when we try to develop skills and strategies to help our learners understand things that they read. So it's not all words and grammar. Okay, now we're going. I want you to have a look at this and agree, disagree, suggest possible causes, ways of dealing with them. When students read or listen, they focus on words, not meaning. These are things that sometimes teachers say. How do you feel about that? Do you think that happens to your learners as well, or is that not a problem? Hmm. Why do you think they focus on words and not on meaning when it happens? Okay, let me ask you something that we discussed yesterday, just in case. Um, when you have a number of questions about the what they're going to read, okay, do you let them read the questions before they read the text or after they read the text? Before. Good. Before. Always before. Why do we give them before? Yes, some could be after, but why do we, to set a task, to set a purpose for reading, to encourage them, yes, good, to encourage them to focus on the items, the information, the ideas that they have to find out, and not start going through the text, looking at every word, underlining words, and so on and so forth. Yes, they have to find specific information, but they can't find specific information if you don't give them the questions. But another reason we do it is exactly to stop them from going reading and underlining words without paying any attention to the meaning. So it's very important to give them a task before they read. Okay, and once again, you can use the questions that are in your book as they are, with maybe a few more questions that you add. Yes, to encourage them to look for information while reading, absolutely, and not start analyzing words. Okay, let's look at the next one. Meaning is the sum total of the words in the spoken or written text. Is that true? Is it? Um, okay, I'm not going to give you a more direct answer now. Yes, the meaning might very well be implied, but do we say what we mean or mean what we say? Do the words we speak or write mean exactly what you think they're supposed to mean? No. Okay, so you can't look at it that way. Uh, so meaning is not the sum total of words. Remember the different sources of comprehension, the different types of knowledge that we use in order to understand. Um, okay, let's look at 3. Learners don't make use of what they know about the topic of the spoken or written text. Yes. Okay. So I take it then that some learners do, some don't. Um, should they make use of what they know, of what they can associate with the topic? Should they? Yes, they should, because that's how we understand. Awareness of context is not considered important when listening or reading. Is that true? No, absolutely not. Very important. And sometimes people can't understand because the context is unfamiliar, both in terms of listening and reading. Learners are often challenged when having to decide on the main idea. Yes, I agree with you. Uh, Pinpointing the main idea can be a problem because what we consider the main idea is very often not only dependent on the text, that's part of it, but it's also a very subjective view. Do you remember the example that I gave you yesterday about somebody that finds an article on new tests and new vaccines that are about to be produced? And what I said to you is that somebody who has been following this and has been reading up on vaccines will go straight for the new item of information and will consider that the main point of the article and will compare the results between the vaccines because that's the way they view it, because they have the background, they know something about it. Whereas somebody else who hasn't been following is going to have a bit of a hard time. So they're going to probably think that the main ideas are all the information about other vaccines as well as the new vaccine. Am I making sense, or would you like me to repeat that? Am I making sense to you? Oh, God. Thank you. Okay. Um, they can't, that's learners, distinguish between different viewpoints. There, they need, again, you need to get them to think about point of view. Whose point of view? Previous knowledge is extremely important. Okay, point of view, and not to try and impose their own point of view or be blind to different points of view in what they're reading. So just get them to think about it. We'll look at an example text later, and maybe we can do a little bit of that. They don't always separate their own opinions from the information in the text. Yeah, and that's a problem. Okay. Again, we need to get them to think about things like that. Okay. So when you push people to read a text just to learn words, it's not reading, it's like a flat analysis, and they're not paying attention to anything that is being communicated. Reading and is communication. Everything is communication. Okay, they find it difficult to combine information from different parts of what they listen to or what they read. Again, okay, you disagree. All right, good. So if they can synthesize, if they can combine, if you do ask them to do more critical tasks, to think about things more critically, and they can do that, that's great. If not, you need to make sure that your questions are intelligent enough so that they do that. And you get them to think about what they're doing. Reflection is what really trains people here. Um, okay, they're not confident enough to infer information. They can be trained, yes. Okay. They prefer to listen rather than read, some of them. True. Not all. Good. Okay, so we're getting a mix. They're intimidated by long texts and long conversations, discussions, etc. Some of them. Good, Nora. Some, not all. Uh-huh. Catching the idea through lines. Yes. Okay, fine. Um, why do you think they're intimidated? They're so intimidated that they sometimes hate reading. This is what I understand from all the discussion with you and other teachers. Um, yeah. Well, this is why I want us to look at reading more carefully. Yes, they get confused if they don't know why they're reading, if they don't know what they're reading about, if they haven't had the time to think about what the thing that they're going to read is about, and maybe collect their thoughts and brainstorm on what they know or don't know about it. And if they don't know anything about it, think about possible things they might want to know. They do hate reading. You mention pronunciation when I say reading, and I worry. What has pronunciation got to do with reading? So are you talking about reading aloud? In what I've been talking about, I'm talking about reading silently, reading for meaning. I'm not talking about reading aloud. Okay, reading aloud is not reading for meaning. It's reading to perform. Good, sometimes they want to know how to write, so that's when they really need to read very carefully and identify things. Yes, exactly. Reading is not reading aloud. Reading for information, for meaning, okay, for ideas, okay. They don't understand what they're reading about when they read aloud. Yes. Okay. So let's deal with that now. In your course book, you have recordings for the text, which is fine. That is maybe one thing you can flip. You can ask them after you have done the reading lesson to listen to it and follow in at home, or even if you want in class, at some point you can ask them to listen and follow, maybe after the lead-in. We'll see, but it varies. But it's not for them to learn to read aloud. We do reading aloud. We do reading aloud. Yes, you prefer to read it yourself. That's fair enough. But do bear in mind that your learners have to get used to understanding different voices, different accents, and so on. So it's a good idea for them to listen to the recording as well. Okay. When they read aloud, they don't understand anything. It's the other way around. What you can do is play the audio, play the recording, and get them to follow in their books if you want. But that's as far as we go. Yes, readers, okay, accomplished readers read well and read relatively faster, okay, and it's silent reading. And actually, when we read, we don't read every single word of the text, okay? All the research that has been done shows that. our eye movements are not linear. We don't go from the beginning of the line to the end of the line and vice versa, or whatever we do. Okay? If they don't read aloud, they won't learn how to read. That is true of young children. That's true of people who are not familiar, are not literate. Okay? That's absolutely true. And I can understand why people do it in elementary, but not in secondary. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about reading and how you can develop reading skills. Okay. All right. Now, let's think about speaking a little bit. We always speak in complete grammatical sentences. Is that true? No. Good. We can take as long as we need to plan and rehearse what we're going to say when we communicate with someone. Face to face. No, we can't. Okay, good. We speak when we want to convey important information. Is that the only time we speak? No, it's a mix. And sometimes what we say is not grammatically correct at all, regardless of whether we are native or non-native speakers. All communication is transactional. Everybody clear about transactional? Transactional is when exchange of information is involved. No, not all. All communication is interactional, when we communicate with each other, just to communicate with each other. Okay? No, not all. So there's a mix. So we might have transactional and interactional parts in a conversation, okay? Or it can be one or the other, depending on the context. We should address everyone the same way. No, good. Native speakers don't make mistakes. They always use accurate language. Absolutely not. Don't people make mistakes when they speak Arabic? I mean, native Arabic speakers. No, never. Oh, they do. Okay, fine. Uh, Noticing chunks of words, that is collocation, phrases, words that go together, facilitates learning and language use. Yes, you do make mistakes in Arabic. Okay. It's a normal thing. Absolutely. Yes, I agree. Okay. Now, how about chunks of words? I've been going about chunks of words, and what do I mean by chunks of words? This comes from the lexical syllabus, yeah? That's noticing how words are combined together, used together, not learning words as one at a time, okay? Like, if you see comment, make a comment, okay? Make a comment is a collocation, okay? Um, yeah, okay, it helps. And it's a good idea to train your learners to identify chunks, okay? Native speakers do grammatical mistakes, make the grammatical mistakes. Okay. Um, Anything about the chunks, collocations, phrases? That like do homework. Yes, exactly. So it's not a good idea to do them separately. This is also something to bear in mind when you're looking at areas of your syllabus which are listed as grammar, because they are listed as grammar in most books, not only of many different publishers. Um, there are certain chapters which are basically in between. They're more lexical than grammatical. Okay. And that includes things like phrasal verbs, for example. They learn them easily through movies and songs. Yes, good, super, absolutely. Well, if your learners do watch videos and can follow language on videos and so on, then they're probably very good listeners. Haircut, yes, okay. But we have compound words as well, all right? Um, but yes, absolutely. Do encourage them to watch things. Yes. Okay. Now, and practice, be exposed to language. And let me say something else. This is what I also advise teachers to do. Expose yourselves to language as it's being used through things that you like. It doesn't have to be done through study only. Put your head down and start studying and writing and so on. Just sit back and watch something that you enjoy, that you are interested in. Okay. So look for things that interest you. But it's very important to expose yourself to language like that. Maybe by just looking at what's happening around the world. Yes, chunks can be used in grammar as well. Absolutely, I agree with you. Um, no, it's not slang. It's combined words, like the examples that some of you mentioned, like do homework, make a comment, okay? Return a call, okay? Very important. So you don't learn them separately. You notice how words pay a fine. Very good. Okay. Um, all right. So I think we agreed expressions and phrases. Yes. What I usually talk about is words and phrases if chunks don't sound good to some people. No, they're not idioms. They're standard language. It's just not single words. We notice which other words are used around them. Yes, it's a combination of words that give one meaning. The ones that you will find more of in your course books and in exercise books and so on are collocations, two-word combinations, usually. Okay. Um, all right, can we have a look at this? This is a transcript of a native speaker interaction during an information gap activity. Let me just clarify that it involved a picture, looking at a picture and sort of discussing it. And there were different people looking at different pictures and trying to compare them without showing the pictures to each other. So look at it, look at the way it goes. This is spoken, yeah? This picture and that picture, I think, have in an airport or a place like that. There are, oh, 6 people, 7 maybe. One is running out. The one of the rooms with a handbag, and another one is drinking coffee, I think, probably. And there's a lady passing by, I suppose, or observing, and a little boy, and what I suppose is a kind of window. Yeah, in the corridor. And no, there are 6 people, but 2 of them are part of the picture, I think. Yes, exactly. Using a lot of fillers. This is very natural for native speakers and non-native speakers if it's not rehearsed, if it's not something that has been written. Okay. No, this is the transcript of a native speaker. Okay. We need these pauses. when we speak, because when we speak, we have what we call restricted processing time. We can't go back, like in reading, we can go back, read again, okay, or in writing, we can go back and change something. When we speak to people, we're communicating with people face to face or online, synchronous at the same time. We haven't got the time. So in natural speech, which is not written, not rehearsed, we need the fillers and the pauses. Yes, fine. Um, to think, to think of what we're going to say next, to look for words that we need, to make a decision. Okay. So this is important and it's something that we do. So it's very important to make learners aware of this. Now, unfortunately, in most of your material, because it's also used as a model, you don't get a lot of these. You get some. This is why it's so important to let your learners, to encourage your learners to watch things, okay? Watch videos, watch people talking, maybe unprepared sort of discussions, panel discussions, or interviews, or whatever. It's necessary to do that while we speak to give ourselves time to think, and also to give the listener time to understand. We don't do it all the time, but this is a situation, this is a transcript of a situation where you had, let's say, two native speakers. Each native speaker was holding a picture. They couldn't see each other's pictures, so they had to have a look at the picture and start talking about it so they could compare and find out if there were similarities, differences, or if they were in order or whatever. Okay? Yes. Um, Sorry. So this is one, and this is the other one. This is the second speaker. Yeah, all right. Yeah. I'm sure the picture I have comes before the one in the table on the table. In my picture, I think we should already start describing our picture. Okay, so we can say it quicker. In my picture, I see a fellow riding a bike. And approaching to a corner where we can see a truck. It seems to me that this fellow is not looking at the truck, which is approaching the corner. Yeah. You will notice that the second person who spoke, okay, had all kinds of false starts, restarts, fillers. Okay, this is natural. Why am I stressing this? Because our poor learners, our poor students, think that when they open their mouths to speak, they have to say everything perfectly and correctly, and they have to speak in complete sentences. And that's not the way people communicate through speech. And they shouldn't expect to hear it either. Do you remember this from yesterday? These are the sources of comprehension, and I promised to show this to you multiple times. So I'm just keeping my promise. To remind you again, understanding is not only reliant on language. This is one source. Understanding when we hear or read language is based on background knowledge, factual, sociocultural, in other words, schematic knowledge, procedural knowledge, how language is used in discourse, not single words, but how it's used in a piece of language in discourse, knowledge of the situation, physical setting, participants, etc., visual support, nonverbal communication, in other words, all the contextual features, context. If, for example, you read a book, let me think of a classic, Room with a View, and you read there about terraced hills. Um, do you have terraced hills in Saudi? Can you picture them? Can you picture what terraced hills are? You do. Where? And what do people use them for? Ah, in the south. What do they use them for? In Asir. Okay. Camping. All right. Okay. All right. So it's you do have them, but you understand something else by them. I'm talking about. Do you know what a terrace is? Terrace. It is double R, isn't it? Terraced hills. Okay, a terrace. Yeah. All right. So actually, when you talk about terraced hills in Room with a View, in some of the classics, they talk about the terraced hills that you get in the Mediterranean. They terrace the hills so they can plant olive trees or other crops. It's not just the place. Okay, so what I'm trying to get to here is, if you haven't seen pictures of, okay, if you have not seen pictures of terraced hills around the Mediterranean countries, yes, it is like balconies, but there is quite a bit of space, okay, and it's like they're like very large staircases, if you like. The whole hill is like that because on every step they plant, okay, so they plant olive trees, they plant fruit trees, they plant all kinds of things, okay. So those are terrace hills. Now, if you don't know that and you're reading a book and it has descriptions like that, you can't understand, okay, the physical setting. You can't understand what they're talking about. Yeah, the example was not for your students, it was for you. More of a staircase, like to create space for plantation, yes. Don't share it with your students. This was for you. It was I'm addressing you as practitioners, as colleagues. Okay, yes, fine. I know you feel like them. Okay, so knowledge of context. Remember what has been used before and what has been said before or written before and after. You used to relax and drink Arabic coffee. I wish I had some now. And finally, knowledge of the language system. Trust. Okay, this is close to terrace. Okay, knowledge of the language system, semantic, syntactic, phonological. I would also say discoursal here, systemic knowledge. Okay? So language is only one of the knowledges. So having done that, okay, yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, that's the room with the view that I was talking about. Um, okay, now let's look at the features. Grammatical accuracy. Thank you. Thank you. It's as if you have already sent me some coffee. Thank you very much. Written. Okay, in written discourse. Planned content. In written. Okay. Unless you have something that is planned as an announcement, in which case it's spoken. Repetition. Repetition. Spoken. Good. Spoken discourse. False starts and restarts. You start saying something, change your mind, you begin again. Spoken discourse, perfectly natural and normal. Punctuation. Punctuation. Written, absolutely. Phonology, pronunciation. Phonology, pronunciation. Spoken, yes, spoken discourse. Not written, okay. Word chunks. And written discourse. Both written and spoken. Register. If something is formal, less formal, standard, and so on, both. Um, Structure, organization. When is it important? Written, good. Referencing. Mainly written, but it's good when we're speaking to make our references quite clear, for the speaker to know what we're referring to. Cohesion. Written, but both, yes. Stops, pauses, I think we've covered for spoken discourse. Complete sentences, grammatical sentences, in other words. Complete sentences, written, that's when they're important. We don't have to have them in spoken discourse. Utterances, they're not complete sentences. Utterances are not good. Anything that you say is an utterance. It can be one word, two words, but it doesn't have to be a grammatical sentence. Okay? Conjunctions. Conjunctions? Both to some extent, but where are they more important? Written. Redundancy. Where do we have redundancy? We could have a little bit in both for effect, but redundancy we have in spoken discourse, yeah? When we repeat things, we say them in different words, we explain, we pause, we say the same thing again. Okay, that's in speaking. So we have more than is necessary. Non-verbal communication. When do we have non-verbal communication? Communication where we don't use language, words. Spoken, absolutely. Okay, through gestures, expressions, through pointing, and so on. All right. So what does this mean in terms of teaching learning implications? Do you remember that it's important for us to make our learners aware of this? We don't want our learners to think that people speak as they write and they write as they speak. We don't want them to think they have to understand every single word to know, sorry, not understand, to know every single word that they hear or they read in order to make sense of what they're listening to or what they're reading. That's not true. I'm sure there are all sorts of words in Arabic that you never use, but you understand perfectly well. So if people do that in their own language, well, I think they should be allowed to do it in another language even more, don't you? Okay. These are some of the things that you said. It's important to listen and read the text first. And that is a dilemma, yes. Is it? Is it important to have the audio to listen? No. As I said, I'm not against the idea of having them listen to the audio and following in their books. That's fine. Students need to read aloud so we can check pronunciation. Why? No. Why? You can check pronunciation if you give them the chance to speak. If the time that they read, you make them read aloud because they don't speak in class, it's a problem. Okay? When you're using the workbook, and in the workbook they have to produce complete sentences, of course they'll do it in complete sentences. But there you're not looking at spoken language or written language. You're trying to practice to learn forms or functions or bits of language that you're trying to teach them that are new, that they're practicing. When we're talking about speaking, we're talking about things like when they're expressing ideas, when they're doing role plays, when they're practicing, as in role plays, using the right kind of language, functions, and so on. Good. They have marks in oral that include reading and speaking. So, reading aloud, what you're saying is reading aloud is marked. I wasn't aware of that. No, it's not a good idea to correct the mistakes all the time. Okay. Yes, I know it's a big debate. All right, let's consider one thing. Do you remember what I said before? Is get them to practice at home. Flip this. This you can flip. Practice at home. Practice after you have done the reading lesson in a way that is more engaging in class. Get them to read and listen to audio, read and follow in their books. Read and follow in their books. Practice so they can read for their exams. Some people can speak fluently and they can't read. They can't read silently. You're really getting me confused now. Some people can speak fluently and they can't read. Do they have some kind of difficulty reading? Is that the case in Arabic as well? Yes, of course. You can ask them to read for a particular reason. Well, that's a problem. If they only get a chance to speak when they have to answer a question from the teacher, then we have a different problem there. Yes, of course, people can speak without knowing how to write if they have never done any writing. Okay, so what you're saying is that they're happier listening and speaking than they are reading and writing. But on the other hand, what you've also said is that they don't speak in class. So if they don't speak in class, what do they need pronunciation for? Just for understanding. Yes, good. Comics are good. Anything that's illustrated is good. And anyway, these are new generations. They're used to different media. Okay, we need to deal with all the vocabulary items in the text first before you read. Yes? No, I think we established that yesterday. Okay. You might choose some key items that you want to deal with because you think they're going to be too difficult for them to understand, but that's that. I don't want my students to read the questions before reading the text. No, Captain. What does yes mean? You mean you disagree with this? I'm glad you disagree. You get them to read the questions first and then read the text. Yes, comics and manga, I know they love it. I just don't want to um, mention it myself. Yes, I agree with you 1,000%, including games. It will be a waste of time if they don't read the questions. Exactly. When we have a story, show them some pictures and make it easier to understand. Absolutely. Yes, it's important for them to read the questions, to read the task, so they have a purpose in reading. People hate reading because if you just ask them to read and to read aloud and to just learn words from the reading, of course they're going to hate it. They get bored. They need a purpose for reading, like we do in real life. Okay, again, what we want to do to help people understand uh, yeah, I know it sounds easier to talk about, but really difficult. No, it's not difficult if you get used to it. What I'm going to be mentioning a bit later is folding and unfolding material. You need to start looking at things that you see on screen or on a page in a book. Okay, they're not there, they have a single dimension almost. Okay, they're flat, but you have to go beyond that. They're there for you to pick up, to reorder, to fold up, to turn around. Okay, yes, to engage them. Uh, and you need to get them to activate their knowledge, what they know, what they expect about things, because they know things. Okay, so now something you saw yesterday, bottom-up processing is from language to meaning. So people who think the text should be analyzed and every single word should be explained, or that the students have to know every single thing and then read, that's bottom up processing. Top down processing is when we make use of all of these through what we do in the beginning. Yes, write some questions before reading. Good, yes, of course. Um, but not all the texts lend themselves to that. Okay, but what we need to do is, whether it's questions or pictures and questions that we use. Do you remember what we did yesterday with the pictures? And I think you were engaged. You had to think about why the man was there with the parrot and why um, this was happening and how were they feeling and so on and so forth. Making use of all this. Okay, this is what we need to help them activate their minds, to get them thinking. Okay. So in top-down processing, is that's what we want. We don't want to analyze every single thing in a text. Okay. Same goes for listening comprehension. Yes, you call it warm up. I call it lead in because I'm afraid that people, when the people hear warm up, in my experience, teachers who are under pressure tend to leave out warm up quite often. And what I'm saying is that the lead in, what you do to activate your learner's knowledge, different types of knowledge, is the most important stage before reading or listening to help them develop the skills, because you want them to get to the point where they do it automatically, as we all do. When you pick up a book because you're interested in it, something happens. You see the title or you see the writer and you think, and you think it reminds you of something else that you read or something that somebody mentioned, and you think to yourself, ah, yes, that sounded quite interesting. Or I really like the last one. I think I'll buy this. Or I'll order it online and get the electronic copy or whatever. And if you have read the other book, all kinds of little things from the other book that you remember, images in your mind, things start popping up in your head. So this is where we want to get them. This is why we're doing it this way, to train them to be active readers, to use everything they know in order to be able to understand. Once they can do that, then you can expect them to be able to read more comfortably and manage with texts. Okay? So focus on learners. Tap, access knowledge sources through images, as you said, pictures. Yes, trigger previous knowledge, questions, statements, other tasks, anything that is appropriate. And because you're their teachers, you know best what is appropriate for them. Pairs, groups, pool knowledge. So when there's information gathering, you might ask them to look up things as individuals to prepare for something, and then they put what they gathered together in their group. But the most important thing is allow thinking time, processing time, even a little bit. Yes, a joke can always help, okay? But allow thinking time. If you say to your students, okay, what do you think about gossip? Do you gossip? And one person says something, and you say, right, okay, fine. So we're going to read a book, a text about gossip. Is that enough? If you have planned, if you get used to working this way, time is not going to kill you. Okay? If you do some of these things to help your learners become more independent, you're going to be a lot happier. Your learners are going to be a lot happier. Thinking time it could be just seconds. I'm not talking about hours. Okay. So, thinking of that, what does each reader bring to the text? You don't waste 3 classes to finish the lesson. That's not a waste. Yes, I know the lessons period is shorter online. This is all the more reason why you should be prepared. Are you telling me that it's faster to go through a text and explain everything and translate and do this, that, and the other? Everything that we've been talking about the lead-in, about everything, is minutes. Sometimes they need seconds if they're used to doing it this way. If they are used to doing it this way, if they are used to you speaking and them listening, yes, they'll need hours. So it's really up to you. Yes, preparation is key. And nothing has to be perfect. And nobody expects anybody to do everything at once. But we have 2 hours, and I'm going to still insist on everything at once. Do it one step at a time. Yes, they're long and boring because they're not engaged, because the students are not engaged. Okay? But a reader, what does a reader bring to the text? They bring their knowledge, they bring their questions. Absolutely, they get the hang of it. Yes. Okay, so it's not like the reader goes to a text with a blank mind. Activate it so that the students don't think that in order to understand they have to know perfect English. Different readers will bring different things to the text. Yeah, we don't all know the same things, correct? But we all read all the time because this is a literate society and we need to survive in it. So we're still talking about three-stage approach to listening reading lessons: before reading, while reading, after reading. I repeat what I said last time. You have questions in your book which are sometimes done after the reading. What you can do is use those questions if you haven't got the time, get them to read those questions and then read the text. Yeah, okay, fine. All right, so before reading stage, purpose, aim to activate background knowledge, topic, situation related, etc. Language associated with the topic or situation. Okay? Active schema or script related with certain events, activities, behaviors, norms, appropriacies. When you say, for example, all right, okay, what we're going to listen to is two friends who are at a restaurant, um, at a posh restaurant, at an expensive restaurant, okay, at an expensive fish restaurant. You instantly, in your mind, you have a certain picture. That if you don't know anything about expensive restaurants and expensive fish restaurants, you're going to have a problem. So you need to see a picture or something um, while reading. Provide focus, purpose for reading. Okay, this can include questions or expectation predictions made in the before reading stage. Students do the first reading, read, in order to compare their ideas, predictions with those in the text and identify different or new elements, which is exactly what we do in real life. Reading tasks may include open questions, true false questions, agree, disagree, no information given, blank text with jumbled sentences to select and complete, inferencing, multiple choice, note taking in an organizer, note taking according to the reader's choices, key items, selected information, etc. And you can add a lot more, I'm sure. After reading is what, in a sense, we sometimes do after we read something. We have certain thoughts, we talk about it, and we say, that was interesting. I'm not sure about that. I liked his first book a lot better than this one. I think there's something wrong with this. What do I think of Murphy's Law? What about it? We can have a quick look if you want. I'll have a look and maybe we can discuss it tomorrow. Okay. Critical, yes. All right. Um, it's like you're giving them something to let them concentrate on the text and discover things. Yeah, but first of all, you focus on meaning, on the content of the text, because this is what the text is there for. When the text is a reading text, it's on the reading page of your book. It's not there for grammar purposes. Okay, it's there for reading skills purposes. Yes, you can give your point of view after reading, reflect on what you read, include activities that help learners identify features of the text if you're going to use it as a model for writing and so on and so forth. Okay. So if you want to be critical and creative, you have to build up a situation, elicit from students. Please remember, if you're saying things that the students can say, if you're doing things that the students can do, you are wasting time. You're wasting their time. It's not a good idea. We think it's faster. It's not, because in the long run, we pay for it. Um, Flip the process, flip the roles. Don't flip the reading class if your students haven't developed reading skills, okay? Strategies and skills to be able to read effectively and understand, okay? And from what you've been saying, they haven't developed the skills. So you can't flip it. Words you can focus on afterwards as well. After they have done the first reading or second reading, there's nothing wrong with focusing on some words. Yes, you give them questions and ask them to read and answer. Okay, but if you ask them again to read and underline and summarize the main ideas, can they find all the main ideas? You mean before class? Then they have to be confident readers. What you have just been saying is that people don't read. They can't read. They're not confident readers. So how can you ask them to do this on their own, at home? Okay. You see a flat page. You need to look beyond it. Yes. Yes, this is what we're talking about, motivation. Decide on procedures and processes. It's like it's flat on the page, but as a mediator, you have to make it 3D. You have to bring it to life. You unfold it. So if, in a sense, a page, let me find a page if I can. Okay. This is a page, yeah? And you see it going from here to there. Yeah, but it's up to you. You can get this and put it here. You can do the before reading with possibly this, or maybe pictures, other questions, and so on. I'll show you options. Oops, sorry. I don't know what happened to this. Oh, oh, no, 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 no.
It's all right, Danai.
Can you see it?
Yes. Just a slideshow, please. Yep.
Okay. Okay, it's not supposed to do that. Okay, so you take this here and you put it here. So after you do your lead in the before reading, you can ask them to have a look at these questions, read in order to find these answers. You want to do more detailed work? Get them to look at each paragraph or paragraphs separately. Each text can be used differently depending on the content in relation with your students, okay? And this is supposed to be for the after reading, yeah? For speaking. The speaking serves as after reading here. So let me go back. Madeni, are you there? No, he's not.
Sorry, he's not here today.
Oh.
Yeah.
He said he would be.
Oops.
Okay. Um, I just wanted to give you a sense of how it feels to be listening to something in a different language. But Danny was supposed to be here, so we were supposed to do it together. So anyway, I'll show you what I've done, and I'll try and do it on my own or something. Okay, it's a very simple dialogue, but it's another language. Okay, so what time of day do you think it is? Can you see the picture? What time of day is it? Sunset, okay? So are people going back home? Ah, it's morning. Okay, let's settle on morning. Very early in the morning. Afternoon. Okay, fine. And this is Medeni, not really, but I'm going to call him Medeni. And this is me, not really. I wish I were as young as she. So who are they? Where are they? Where do you think they are? Are they in a shop? In an office? What do you think? Okay, but they're outdoors at any rate. Okay, so this is me, and this is Medeni. Okay, and sometimes on the way home or on the way to work, people do sort of different chores. Yeah. So they sometimes do what? Bus station. No? Well, this is not a. Is this a bus station? Can you see what's behind? Where do you think this is? University. There's a shopping cart there, yeah? Grocery, okay, so it's a grocer, it's a grocery. All right. And what about this? I should have put a dollar sign or euro sign or money sign. Yes, it could be Walmart, a hotel, or a bank. Okay, fine. All right, I'm going to do the dialogue very quickly in Turkish. And then tell me if you can answer whatever you understand out of it. Okay? If you can tell me where they're going. Yeah. So I'm going to point to the speaker, each speaker. This is also the way you can do things on your own, yeah? If you have different people speaking and you can't use the recording, make sure you have two characters. Sometimes it can be very simple kind of icons to point to as you do it. So, günaydın Danay Hanım. Günaydın Medeni Bey. Nereye gidiyorsunuz? Bakala, bakala. Ekmek alacağım. Ne güzel. Ben de bankaya gidiyorum. Ben de sizinle geliyorum. Did you get anything? Okay. All right. Now listen again and tell me where you think I am going, Danai is going, and where you think Medeni is going. All right? Just once again, and then we'll stop. Günaydın Danay Hanım. Günaydın Bedeli Bey. Nereye gidiyorsunuz? Bakala. Ekmek alacağım. Ne güzel. Ben de bankaya gidiyorum. Ben de sizinle geliyorum. They know each other. Okay. Who is going to the bank? Bedeni or Lanai? Who's going to the grocery? The man to the bank. And Lanai? What word did you hear? Okay. I said, bakala gidiyorum. Ah, yes. Okay. All right. So, yes, some people know a little more, some people know less, but yes, Nura, you understand Turkish language, yes. But even those of you maybe who are not as familiar with the language, did you get the general idea? Yes, grocery store, gidiyorum, yes, supermarket. Yes, exactly, you use it in Arabic. Yes, you used your previous knowledge and prior knowledge and context to understand. Yes, yes. Okay. Ah, okay, yes, exactly. There are borrowed words, right, left, and center. Of course. It's the same word as now. It's the Arabic word. Some people didn't get anything. Now you feel bad for your poor students. Okay, fine. That was the idea. Not to make you feel bad, but just to remind you how it feels and how important it is to build up the context, okay? And then get people to listen, all right? I didn't use the last pictures, which I would have used if Madani had been here, because when he said, for example, when Madani said, nereye gidiyorsun to me, I would have said, okay, bakala, ekmek alacağım. And when I say, and then when he says, ben de bankaya gidiyorum, I would have shown this, okay? Anyway, do remember to build up things. It doesn't take very long. You can find free things to download on the web, safe ones. So it's a good idea to do it. Now, do you want to do showing pictures? Yes, of course. I can speak Greek, and my French is very rusty. And I wish I could speak Arabic. I was trying to find somebody to teach me, but I can't. Yeah. Maybe I should give it a try. Okay. Right. Let's carry on with that page that you saw. Also, have you all got your handouts? Because if you do, you also have, yes, you have some pages from the book, yeah? Yes. Okay. Don't look at those pages now. Okay. So look at this. Gossip, 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 gossip. Imagine you are your students. Gossip. Why do we gossip? Why we gossip? Why do we gossip? Where do you find gossip? Why do people gossip? Just talk, human nature, okay? Do you like gossiping? Bad. Okay. It's a waste of time. Yeah. To kill time. Where do people gossip nowadays? Social media. Is there a difference between gossiping and bullying? No, not really. Okay. Um, to have fun, but it's bad. It's bad for whom? Okay. But do you, there's a fine line between gossiping and bullying, yes. Um, people avoid talking about themselves by gossiping, okay? Sometimes they're the same, to have a headache, not the same, and so on. I think, you get the idea that if you have questions like that, your students will talk about social media, okay? Gossip's sometimes good, maybe. So, can we have a look at this? Can you please look at your screen and start reading, please? Okay. Hide the reality behind people's issues. Yes. Can you please read this? It's part of the text. Can you read it? Black screen. Okay, so, all right. So gossip is spread in classrooms, offices, restaurants, over the phone and on the internet. What's the next thing you expect to read about? What's the next thing you're going to read about? Why do people, don't look at the text. Okay, but does it say that? Okay, stop, read what it says. No one. There are many reasons people gossip. Some people gossip because it makes them feel they're part of a group. Yes, it goes back to social media again, doesn't it? And what's the next thing you expect? Don't look at the text. It doesn't make sense then. More reasons. Okay. Where and how? Yeah. The people spreading the gossip, read it. Report. Done. Okay. So to feel acceptable, all right? So he wanted to be one of the group, to belong. Who needs someone to listen to them, to understand them? What's next? So what happens? Focus on David Jardel. Okay. when he first graduated from college, he got this job, a few other graduates, to be an assistant at a news station. It was a really competitive job, and at first it was difficult to make friends. We worked long hours and weren't paid very much. We were all really struggling, or at least that's what I thought. Yeah. So what's next? What do you expect next? Give example from real life. Uh, why people go. David's opinion. Okay. Do you expect him to talk about it more? An example. All right. How he started to like gossip. Maybe. Okay. So read why. But one day, yes, it's not permissible anywhere, quite honestly. Uh, I overheard one of the other assistants. Can you please read it? So was David eavesdropping? Was he listening into a private conversation? Hmm, spying. Okay, what a shame. What do you think he did after that? What do you think David did after that? Gossip. Okay, let's see. Read it. He spread it, yes, he passed it on. Um, okay. We all had a good laugh about it and it helped us bond as a group, but there was a price to be paid for that, and Rick paid it. How? What do you think happened? What do you think happened to Rick? Yeah, he didn't keep it a secret. So you think Rick left the job? Rick had a problem, got mad. They started bullying him. Yes, they made fun of him. He quit his job. Okay? So made fun of him. Look, read. We used to tease him quite a bit. For example, if we were ordering a pizza, we would say, "Oh, Rick, wouldn't you prefer to have a nice meal at a restaurant and charge it to your daddy?" We meant it in good fun, but looking back, I can see how it might have seemed malicious to Rick, badly intended, nasty to Rick. He ended up quitting, as you said. I've always felt bad about the part I played in his decision to leave. Yeah? That is part of the reading, okay? Um, oops. It's basically this part. This is as far as I've got. Don't spread gossip and so on, okay? Why did I choose to do it the way I did, do you think? Again, to show you what I mean when I say that you are free to use things as you think they might be used to engage your learners and to get the job done and to get everybody involved. Okay. So basically, that's why I did it the way I did. And these ones, I wanted you to see this because okay, like this. In a real class, what I would do is I would go step by step. Okay. No, you're getting them to anticipate. You're getting learners to think about what is going to happen next using their life experience, what they know, their ideas, what they believe. Okay, so it's cultural as well. All right. And yes, the learners are involved in the learning process and they're engaged, and you give them a chance to speak. All right. So this is what we want. And then what I would do is stop there, discuss this part, and then manage with the rest. Reflect on David's experience. What would you have done? Why? Think about other common causes of gossip and make notes. And then read the rest. And what was Jim Lyle's experience? Why did he gossip about his colleague? How did things turn out? How does Jim feel now? Have you been in a similar position? So the first two, or rather this and that, are going to follow on from what they've read, from what you've read. This one is what they need to focus on when they read the rest, which is easier to read because it's, in a sense, quite similar and it's relevant to gossip. Okay, so that would take a lot less time. And this as well. Okay, why do young people gossip? Do you gossip? Do your friends gossip? Should you trust a friend with a secret? Why not? Yeah, afterwards. Is gossip always negative? How do some people view gossip? Should you pass on gossip to other people? When is gossip harmful? Think about social media and comments. So these two immediately after, and the rest with this was I would give them in writing to think about, maybe chat about a little bit, and then read and answer, comment, and so on. And that's that. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Chain of events, but that comes from your knowledge of setting, situation, schemas. Yeah, what happens, your ideas, values, beliefs, and so on. So it's not like it's not up in the air. Okay. Oops. Sorry. No. 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 Thank you. Don't go away. I don't want you to go away yet. Okay. Um, well, the reason I sort of included the teacher's pages is because the teacher's book also suggests a very reasonable kind of sequence. But I want you to also compare and see what kind of changes, what kind of adaptations I have made, how I have changed things to try and engage learners as much as possible. You can engage your own learners. It's not something that you should expect any book to do perfectly because you're the book or the writer is not going to know your learners. You can make general sort of I suppose you can make some general statements. You can have an idea of what learners of the age group and so on might be interested in, might know, and so on. But if you know your learners, which you should, um, then you should be able to do it even better. Okay, so the first thing is to know your learners. The second thing is to always think back about what we do when we're dealing with languages communication in real life, yes, and connected with life. Um, and give people time and make people think, make your learners think, make your learners try and speculate using their knowledge and so on. You don't say to them, now use your knowledge of life. It happens. You can see that it happens. I didn't tell you what to use. Yeah. It happens just very naturally. And what I need you to always remember, please separate these two. Reading aloud is a different skill. It's not reading for meaning. Yes, definitely personalize. Um, Thank you so much. If I have motivated you, well, I would ask for nothing more. I, I I love teaching. I love my work. I love working with you. And I know this is a very short time, and we need a lot more um, to convince you to get you to do things. But I think maybe it's a good start. Maybe you'll try different things. Please don't forget this. Very important. Okay, it's not just language that helps us understand. We use all the rest of our knowledge sources to understand. Um, May I also please ask you to look at your handouts? Oops. And, oh, sorry, muddling things now. Okay. There are just a few things that I'd like you to see here. Other possibilities. I'm not suggesting that you do what we did and then do that. Um, when I listed the possibility of deleting, taking out sentences from the text here and jumbling in order and getting them to complete, yeah, like that. You don't have to do it with the whole text. You can do it with a little bit. All right. This is on the same text, so I would actually do this with the first paragraph. Okay. Um, do you think you could have a look at your screen? Okay, this is the text with the blanks, and these are the sentences that you need to put in the right place. Can you read the sentences first, please? So, no, well, you tell me. So what would you put in A? You would put 3. Someone else said 2. So you would go for 3, 2, and 1. Yeah, good. So 3 is here, yeah? Okay, yes, that's right. 3, 2, 1. Okay, when you're doing it in class, what I would then do is say, okay, what did you use to help you decide? Were there any words? Was it the information, the topic of this? And try and get the students to identify what they used as clues. This is what we do when we train them, okay? And you will say it takes time, takes a little bit of time. You don't have to do everything all the time with every single text. As I said, you do a little bit, but it's very important to get them to reflect, think back on what they have done, and try to find out and try to think about how they did it. Because people sometimes we do things, but we're not always aware of exactly how we do them. Being reflecting on what you did, what you've done, helps. Okay, and the other thing that you can do, you don't have to do it now, just to remind you, if you think that the texts that you have lend themselves to it, and there's a lot more ideas, I'm just giving you a few, okay? Give them the opening sentence, read the opening sentences of the paragraphs, read all of them first. They are from a text titled Phobias, Nothing to Fear. So you discuss phobias to begin with. Think about information or ideas that you expect to find in each paragraph. Work with a partner, make notes of your ideas, okay? Sometimes you can give them the opening sentence and the final sentence of paragraphs, whatever helps actually, okay? Um, and what I would leave out is this, which says there's a Japanese proverb that says, fear is only as deep as the imagination allows. People who have learned to overcome phobias understand how true this is. Yeah, for discussion. Yeah, for thinking back and discussing things. All right, so sources of comprehension. Speaking is not perfect. If you want your students to speak, you need to plan and give them the time to speak. You can't expect them to speak by reading aloud. That's not speaking. Speaking requires a lot more, as you well know. So for reading aloud, if it's something that is assessed and you're worried about it, you can flip that one after you have done the reading lesson, after you have done what you need to do in class to get them engaged, to get them thinking, to get them using their minds, okay? So they can develop the skills and become more independent and able to do this on their own, okay? And no, you don't need to do all the vocabulary items first, but if there are vocabulary items that are difficult, very difficult, if there are terms, remember jargon, then it's a good idea to give them a little glossary and help them. There's nothing that says you can't. And be very clear about your aims and try and do a lot more top-down processing with your learners. And please do remember that if your lesson, the lesson that you're focusing on, says reading, then that is your main aim. This lesson is not for you to do grammar. If it's listening, it's listening. So it's to develop listening skills. Again, it's not for grammar purposes. When you have conversation, then you do work with that to be able to pick up some language that is used in spoken English. All right, so that's okay. But you can't do everything regardless of what. Just remember that reading is an interactive process, and so is listening. We see people listening and not doing it, their minds are working. We can't expect people to show things all the time. That is our problem. Different people will read different things, will bring different things. You can't expect a child to bring the kind of experience and knowledge that an older person will have, but an older person maybe will also have very traditional ideas or not be maybe so technology savvy, or maybe he is, we don't know. And you certainly can't read a scan as well as um, medical specialists, yes? Um, as to reading text, well, you need to be a little younger so you don't have to wear glasses, because when the years go by, you can't see very clearly from close up. So you would hold this a lot further to be able to see it, and so on and so forth. So your learners have a lot to bring to the text. What you want is to bring that to life, bring their minds to life so that you can involve them and unfold what you see on the page. Use it as you see fit, to the best of your abilities, their abilities, to try and realize their potential and prepare them to do things on their own. Yes, of course, you can make questions about the text, but it's good if you write the questions first so that they have them and then they read the text in order to be able to answer them. The first time, maybe they read the text to compare with their um, what they expect, or towards the end, just simply so that they can listen and follow in their books. Just that. And thank you very much. And thank you for your patience again. And thank you for your participation. And thank you for your very kind words and your encouragement. And I hope you found this useful. I know I insist on things, but the only reason I insist is because I believe in these things, because I have done them, I do them, and I know they work. And they make life a lot easier, and they make lessons a lot more enjoyable and less tiring. You get very tired maybe thinking and preparing things, but once you do that, what happens during class, whether online or face to face, really takes a lot of the tiredness away. Why did I show you things in little boxes and so on and so forth? Also to show you how much you can do online with simply copying texts and cutting them up and doing all kinds of things like that, which won't take you a long time and will help everybody, I hope. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll miss you too. But we've got tomorrow. I hope you will join again tomorrow.
Yes, we hope so. If you have any question for tonight, we're happy to stay back and pick any, so please let us know. I know some of you are asking for the link of the handouts for today, and some of them are asking for tomorrow. So I'm just going to drop that in the chat box. But if you have any questions for tonight, please let us know. Yes, Fatma, I've just dropped the link to the handout. There was a question that came in the chat, and because I'm not able to locate it now, just trying to look.
Yeah.
Where did it go? It was about what you were talking, Danai. Can we please have the questions in the Q&A? Okay, I guess we will pick it up tomorrow then.
Okay.
Ew, I got it. Great. I think it's just my connection.
Okay.
Is it okay to play the audio of reading while the students are reading? Good question.
Yes, well, if the students are, if you're playing it for them to listen and follow in their books, in case they want to pick up how things are said, yes, fine. If you have students who have learning difficulties, dyslexia and so on, it might help. But in general, when they have certain questions to answer, and you give them the questions and you ask them to read in order to answer the questions, it's better if you ask them to read silently. Because when you read aloud, you read slowly. And a lot of people never get out of that, and they subvocalize. You can see their lips moving as they read. That's a lot slower, because when we become better readers, when we read faster, we don't actually read every single word along every line. The eye movements are kind of zigzagging. Okay.
Right. And there's another one. What to do if students don't even know the simple words?
I don't know. Do you mean you have students who are a completely different level?
I suppose so. Like
Well,
they
that's
don't.
a different kind of problem. Um, if if oops, um, I don't see an answer to that,
No, I don't.
so I'll leave that. Um, what about form, meaning, function? Our supervisor wants us to include them in the test. I think they're for enrichment. No, form, meaning, function is exactly what we do with grammar. This is what we've talked about. That when you're dealing with grammar, you don't only deal with form, you have to deal with meaning, with concept questions. It's something that we've already talked about. I'll see if we have the time to deal with it a little bit tomorrow, but I can't promise. Okay, draw for them, show them pictures, give them definitions. Yes, fine. Oh, is that an answer to the question? Thank you so much. Yeah. Um, is it good for students to prepare reading on the day before? My view is no, because then you will never get a chance to help them develop reading skills and strategies. Yes, give the questions first and then get them to read in order to answer them. When they develop the strategies, if they become more confident readers, then you could ask them to read on their own and come back and do the discussions and this, that, and the other. But until then, you can't.
There's a question, but you have said before that form meaning can be assigned, and that's why there is nothing about it in the workbook.
I don't know. I can't follow. I don't understand. I'm talking to you as teachers. I'm not going to only tell you what's in the book. You can see what's in the book. I'm trying to tell you go beyond that a little bit. Yeah? When we talked about grammar, we said that it's not just form that you have to worry about. What you have to worry about is meaning, semantics. And a lot of the times that's the problem. That's what you need to explain more than anything else. If there is nothing about it in the workbook, it's because there can't really be anything in the workbook so much. You need to do that kind of work with concept in class a lot more. I wouldn't ask them to prepare the lesson at home, because then you can't do anything to engage them in class. I can't suggest one single website for educational games. There are quite a few websites. Look at Edutopia, look at, I don't want to mention more, sorry. Um, there are sort of teacher sites, the teacher created materials and so on. Google it.
A lot of people are asking if you can leave. Yes, you can leave. That's fine. Some people are asking if we will be sharing the recording. Yes, we will be sharing the recording of this session. You will receive it via email. We're just staying back because some people might have questions. So we're just covering that. But if you need to leave, that's absolutely all right.
Okay. When can you turn on the audio for them? Do you mean for when they do reading? You could do it at different times for different lessons. Yeah, you could do it like after you've done the before reading activities and they read and compare with their ideas. Then you could maybe ask them to uh, listen, follow in their books, read, to compare with their ideas if you want. I wouldn't. I would go for silent reading and maybe do the reading and listening at the end of the lesson. But it's up to you, whatever you think you should, whatever you think is going to help them. No, I don't think your students are ready to use flipped class in all reading classes. And I'm not sure where this came from, but I mean, I know that that's a problem. Um, it can be flipped, if not, if it's language. Like if people are studying chemistry, they flip classes. You study the particular chapter, the area on your own in higher education, and you go to the laboratory and do your experiments and your research the next day, or you discuss it or whatever. In language, in order to do that, we have to make sure that students have developed the skills and strategies that are required for them to be autonomous, to become fairly confident readers. Because it's a language, it's not the content in terms of subject content that we're dealing with. So, first of all, we need to train them to be able to read for understanding, read for content, in other words. That's not given. All right. Sorry. Yes, let me deal with that. Thank you for this. Now I understand what the question was. You mean the section that's form, meaning, and function? What I have mentioned before, that was added to make sure that all the items that might appear in your exams were referred to. Okay, it's a matter. It's something that has to do with your curriculum. Yes, it is a different kind of grammar, but it's not. It was not in the original syllabus. This was done in order to cater for the requirements of the ministry, the requirements of your curriculum, which was designed by the ministry. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Munira. I misunderstood. I used them as terms before. I'm really sorry. Um, it is an additional part at the end of each unit. And the reason it's there is to make sure that all the items that appear in the official curriculum um, are dealt with throughout. So this is why it's additional. It was not in the original syllabus. I'm sorry, Munir, I misunderstood your question. Write the questions so they can see them. That's better if you ask groups to prepare one paragraph each, but then before you ask them to prepare one paragraph each, you have to prepare tasks, at least one task for each paragraph yourself to give them. It's not revision. Oh, sorry. Yes, 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 it is revision. Munira, sorry, I was looking at something else. Yeah, yes. Um, Purely revision if you think it's necessary, because sometimes I think there are things that might not be necessary because they've been done a number of times before. Um, Sorry, Munira. Um, Now, again, I for understanding, we train we train people in education in general to read silently if we want them to become faster readers, effective readers, and so on. But if you have students with difficulties, it might help them to read aloud as they go through texts. The aim of the expansion units is to give them a chance to recycle some of the language that they've done or the topics that they've done, or give them additional topics. And to tell you the truth, sometimes you might find something in the expansion unit that you think is more suitable and replace something in the proper unit. Absolutely, Mud. No, no, no. You don't need to focus, Munira. No, no, that's fine. Yes, please. If you have to leave, feel free. Um, I'm glad we clarified that, Munira. I'm sorry I misunderstood to begin with.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were wanting to leave now. Perhaps
Yeah.
we can pick up the Q&A tomorrow. We'll have enough time.
Just one last thing. Yes, it's okay to follow the teacher's guide, but the only thing I would change is I, but you can make your own decision, is the questions, the comprehension questions and so on, I would give them to them before they read. Yes, the introduction is very important. The lead-in is very important. Okay, see you tomorrow.
Thank you everyone for joining us, and I guess we'll see you tomorrow for our last session, which is for secondary teachers. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow then.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.